One day in November 2018, the first genetically modified twins in human history, born through artificial means, in secret, without anyone's knowledge, in China. Soon after, the creator of the twins, Professor He Jiankui from Southern University of Science and Technology, publicly claimed that he had successfully created the world's first HIV-immune twin babies. One was named Lulu and the other Nana, through genetic modification. They were born with natural resistance to HIV. The news broke, and the world was stunned. The entire scientific community was greatly shaken. Professor He Jiankui was first recognized by Nature magazine as one of the top 10 scientists of the year. He was named by Time magazine as one of the most influential tech figures of 2018. But soon, everything took a sharp turn. 122 scientists jointly condemned and opposed his actions. It even drew the attention of the National Health Commission, the Chinese Academy of Engineering, the American Science Association, AAA's, and the U.S. National Institutes of Health. In January 2019, He Jiankui was convicted of illegal medical practice and sentenced to 3 years in prison. He was jailed and fined 3 million yuan. Wait a minute, a scientist trying to fight HIV creates a pair of babies naturally immune to HIV. This should be a major scientific breakthrough, deserving global admiration and nationwide praise, right? So why did it end like this? Was it fake? Not at all. The reason was simple. He Jiankui used the famous gene editing technology. Gene editing can alter an organism's original DNA, so this technology is often seen as challenging the realm of God, and He Jiankui was the one who dared to play God without permission. That's why he was dubbed by the academic world as a mad scientist. To fully understand this event, we need to go back several centuries. In medieval Europe, a catastrophic plague occurred, the Black Death. This disaster wiped out 1/3 of Europe's population. To survive such devastation, some people seemingly evolved, as if blessed by God. They mysteriously developed immunity to the Black Death. Even if infected, they recovered quickly. They were dubbed the Chosen Ones. Centuries later, today, scientists discovered these chosen ones are not only immune to the Black Death, they're also immune to HIV. Further research revealed that compared to ordinary people, their CCR5 gene naturally lacks 32 base pairs. These 32 base pairs are the entry point for HIV. Without this gateway, HIV cannot invade the chosen one's bodies. Smart as you are, you might be thinking, what if we just delete those 32 base pairs from a normal person's DNA? Would that make them immune to HIV forever? What a coincidence. Professor He Jiankui thought the same. In 2017, He Jiankui secretly recruited 8 couples. They all had one thing in common. The husbands were HIV positive, and they all wanted children, but they feared passing HIV to their babies. So they agreed to work with He Jiankui. Under his sweet talk, they unknowingly became the first couples in history to create customized babies. He Jiankui used gene editing technology to modify the embryo's CCR5 gene and successfully implanted them in the mothers. Eventually, 3 volunteers became pregnant and were successfully implanted into the mother's womb. In the end, 3 volunteers became pregnant. One of them gave birth to twin baby girls named Lulu and Nana. Moreover, He Jiankui still had 16 gene-edited embryos frozen, just like these. In November 2018, Lulu and Nana were successfully born. The experiment was complete. Pandora's box had been opened. On November 26, 2018, He Jiankui eagerly announced on YouTube to the entire world that the world's first gene-edited babies had been born. In the video, He Jiankui appeared confident and proud. He even deliberately adjusted his tone and slowed his speech to appear solemn and ceremonial. He declared that this research could offer hope to people with HIV and that it was a world-class breakthrough. However, the openly aggressive He Jiankui couldn't escape the ethical scrutiny of society. His research was soon questioned globally and condemned by 122 scientists from both China and abroad. He Jiankui, I'm talking to you, and I think you know what you did. Either in China or in other places, no matter what your scientific credentials are, is what you're progressive? Shame on you. you're part of this. Because he edited the genes of human embryos. Editing this act is explicitly banned in every country. Such behavior is like pouring a bottle of ink into the entire human gene pool. Once this precedent is set and becomes widespread, it could potentially alter the entire human gene pool. The gene editing technology used is also called gene scissors and is considered a core technology of the fourth industrial revolution. By using gene scissors, you can insert desired genes into existing genetic material and also remove unwanted genes. You can even delete or correct biological information at will. Theoretically, a child who could only grow to 1.5 meters tall could be genetically altered to grow to 1.8 meters. You could also change their genes from monoliths to double eyelids and even alter their intelligence and physical fitness. Because this technology is so powerful, scientists say it challenges the realm of God. Once humans master this technology, they will essentially have access to the source code of life. It's even fair to say that possessing this technology means having the power of the Creator. In fact, scientists around the world have used gene scissors to conduct various kinds of research, like altering the size and weight of wheat to boost yields, creating mosquitoes that don't spread disease, or pigs with super muscles, etc. In 2016, the US FDA approved the first clinical trial to use gene scissors technology to treat cancer in humans. To this day, many scientists still use this technology in clinical trials with human subjects. So if that's the case, why is it that only Chinese scientist He Jiankui was condemned and denounced by the entire world? Because He Jiankui's experiment was indeed different from the others. Past clinical trials by scientists were conducted on somatic cells and did not involve reproductive cells or embryos. The experiment results only affected certain parts of the human body, like changing monoliths to double eyelids, without affecting other areas. But He Jiankui's experiment was different. He directly modified human embryos, which is unlike working with somatic cells. Any minor changes made to embryos, it could potentially affect any part of the body. Even more frightening, it could also affect the next generation. Editing embryonic cells is like opening a blind box. No one knows what impact it might have on the child in the future. In other words, normal children develop and grow according to nature's logic, according to the Creator's design. But He Jiankui's genetically modified children had their source code rewritten, developing based on man-made intervention. When they grow up, will they develop unknown diseases? Will they lose certain functions or have defects? Will their descendants suffer from serious mutations? Or perhaps develop abilities humans don't normally have? All of this is unknown. No one can predict what consequences may follow. Therefore, to prevent the abuse of gene editing technology, scientists have, at times, established regulations. Before we fully understand genes, editing reproductive cells or embryos is prohibited. Gene editing. In 2015, the International Summit on Human Gene Editing issued a declaration on gene editing research stating, first, even gene editing performed on cells should be subject to legal and ethical oversight. Second, if gene editing is performed on somatic cells for medical reasons without affecting future generations, it must be strictly reviewed. Third, since reproductive cells can pass on genetics, therefore, do not edit reproductive cells or embryos. Gene editing in this context is highly irresponsible at a time when this technology is immature and safety is far from guaranteed. He Jiankui acted secretly, violating the most basic ethics and regulations of gene editing. This reckless experiment might bring harm to the children, to society, and even pose great risks to all of humanity. Nature is fair. Every part of our body has its specific purpose, not to be changed lightly. In theory, deleting 32 bases from the CCR5 gene may make a child immune to HIV, but it also destroys the original function of CCR5, causing other deficiencies. A study in Spain found that people lacking CCR5 are 4 times more likely to die from the flu than average. Over the past 20+ years, research has shown that CCR5 helps protect the lungs, liver, and brain in patients with serious infectious or chronic diseases. This proves that the CCR5 gene has valuable functions. To trade all of that just to avoid HIV is like cutting off your nose to avoid pollen allergies. And worst of all, someone else made this decision for the children. Not only that, when these children grow up, will they be allowed to marry? Will they be stripped of reproductive rights? And if permitted, what effects will they have on humanity in the future? Only heaven knows. Just imagine, if this technology becomes commercialized, what a huge impact it would have on society. If in the future, humans can design babies, only the elite will benefit. Their children will become more and more superior. Ordinary people's living space will shrink until most of the human population with regular genes goes extinct, and a new, genetically perfected species emerges. And he, Jiang Kui, was the one who opened Pandora's box. A man who touted a new chapter for humanity, a fanatic, a mad scientist, undoubtedly. Of course, he, Jiang Kui, paid the price for his madness and arrogance. The court found that since 2016, he, Jiang Kui, and others forged ethics-reviewed documents claiming that editing the sentence to 3 years in prison and fined 3 million RMB. Interestingly, the later legislature believed he, Jiang Kui, did not constitute illegal medical practice since he was not a doctor and didn't practice medicine. Thus, Amendment Xi of the criminal law added a new offense: illegal human gene editing and cloning. One could say this law was created because of he, Jiang Kui, the renowned scientist. Stephen Hawking once said, "Humanity will be unable to resist the temptation of gene modification. Within this century, genetically modified superhumans will be born and dominate the world." In other words, in the near future, we will enter the era of designer humans. Perhaps this was also he, Jiang Kui's ambition. Compared to the harsh criticism within China, many foreign media and academics have a more nuanced view of he, Jiang Kui. Quite a few scientists believe he is a pioneer in a certain sense and call for reconsidering the ethical limits of academia. Some scholars even argue that banning gene editing technology outright is not the best choice. If safety can be ensured, allowing humanity to explore more ways to conquer diseases might not be a bad thing. Just like how people were once terrified of IVF technology, but now it is very widespread. There are now over 8 million IVF children living on Earth. Just like the Italian scientist Galileo, he was once considered a blasphemer and sentenced to lifelong house arrest. But today, we all live and explore under the legacy of his work and benefit from his discoveries. Still, what people care about most is Lulu and Nana. By now, they should be about 5 or 6 years old. How are they doing now?